"You're late," my dad grumbled the moment he opened the front door, dragging his suitcase behind him. I glanced down at the clock on my dashboard. 7:58 a.m. "I said 8, I replied, forcing a smile as I stepped out of the car. Right on time. But then, I saw him. Standing there at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed over his chest, a backpack slung lazily over one shoulder. My brother Daniel. My stomach twisted. Why is he here? Daniel had no job, no responsibilities, no obligations except maybe keeping his Xbox warm. He wasn't supposed to be here. This cruise was meant for me and my parents. Something I'd been planning for nearly 2 years. Something I'd paid for. Every single penny. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heartbeat had just doubled. My mom walked out next, wearing her wide-brimmed sun hat and an overly bright smile that instantly felt fake. "Oh, Mandy," she said, waving her hand like I was being dramatic. "We decided Daniel should come, instead of you." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Instead of me?" I repeated slowly, almost not believing what I just heard. "Are you kidding? This cruise is... I booked this. For you. For your anniversary. For us." Dad shrugged, adjusting his sunglasses like this was some kind of inconvenience he didn't want to deal with. "Daniel's been stressed lately," he said casually. "Life's been rough on him. He needs some rest." Mom chimed in, nodding as though that explained everything. I blinked. Stunned, frozen, completely blindsided. Daniel? Stressed? From what? Leveling up in video games? Sleeping till noon? Living rent-free under their roof while I worked 60-hour weeks to afford this cruise? Daniel smirked, kicking a pebble with his shoe. "Yeah, appreciate you understanding, sis." His voice was laced with that familiar smugness I'd hated since we were kids. "Been feeling kind of burned out, you know?" I stared at him, then at my parents. My lips parted, but no words came out. Because what could I possibly say? I had spent 2 years planning this. 2 years of overtime, canceled weekends, skipped vacations, all to give my parents something unforgettable. A luxurious cruise down the Panama Canal. Balcony suites, private shore excursions, gourmet dinners, a once-in-a-lifetime trip. And they replaced me. Like I was an afterthought. "You're serious?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Dad sighed, clearly getting impatient. "Let's not make this a big thing, Mandy. You know how much Daniel's been struggling. He could really use a break. And you're always busy anyway. Work, work, work. You can take a vacation another time." Another time? This was the time. I clenched my jaw, biting back every furious word rising to my throat. Because if I let even one out, the floodgates would burst. Instead, I nodded stiffly. "Right." My voice was flat. "Of course." Daniel walked past me, dumped his bag into the trunk of my car, and grinned. "Thanks for driving, by the way." Real MVP, I didn't respond. My fingers tightened around the keys in my hand until they dug into my skin. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, when did it become my job to reward laziness? When did his comfort matter more than my effort? More than everything I've done for this family? But I didn't. I opened the trunk, closed it, maybe a little harder than necessary, and got in the driver's seat. The ride to the port was suffocatingly quiet, except for Daniel, of course. "Oh man, I saw a YouTube vlog about this cruise," he said, leaning forward between the seats. "There's this crazy water slide on the ship, and all-you-can-eat sushi. Think it's included?" "Yeah," Dad chimed in. "Hope we can snag some good spots for the excursions. You booked all that, right, Mandy?" I bit the inside of my cheek. "Yeah, I did." Mom nodded like everything was perfectly normal. "See? It's fine. It'll be a fun trip. No need for drama." I glanced at them in the rearview mirror. No need for drama. Sure. Just replace your daughter with your son on the trip she paid for without even telling her until the morning of departure. No drama at all. When we finally pulled into the port parking lot, my stomach was in knots. The ship towered over us, sleek, massive, dazzling under the morning sun. I should have felt proud, excited. Instead, I felt hollow. I stepped out and helped unload the bags. My parents barely seemed to notice the tension radiating off me like a furnace. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart," Mom said, giving me an airy little hug. "You're always so mature about these things." Mature. Right. Daniel hoisted his backpack over one shoulder and grinned as he headed toward the terminal. "Appreciate it, sis. You're the best." I stood there watching them walk away. Their figures grew smaller as they disappeared through the doors leading to the check-in. A part of me wanted to cry, but a bigger part of me, the part that had been ignored, dismissed, and shoved aside one too many times, started to simmer. No, Mandy, not this time. I pulled out my phone, opened my travel app, and stared at the reservation. A single thought echoed in my head. If I'm not on that cruise, then neither are they. And that was the moment everything changed. I sat there in my car, staring at the terminal doors long after they disappeared inside. My fingers hovered over my phone screen, heart pounding so hard it felt like it echoed in my ears. Part of me thought, don't do it, Mandy. Just let it go. Be the bigger person. Again. But another part, the part that had been trampled, dismissed, and pushed aside for years, snapped back louder. No, not this time. I opened the reservation app I'd used to book the cruise. My thumb trembled as I scrolled through the itinerary. Balcony suites, premium excursions, private dining packages. All of it. Booked under my name, my credit card, my effort, my sacrifice. And yet, they'd tossed me aside like I was an afterthought. Like I was the optional child. I hovered over the Manage Booking button, clicked it. My thumb rested over Cancel Reservation. A lump rose in my throat. Not sadness. No, not anymore. It was anger. Clean, sharp, righteous. They didn't even ask me. They didn't even have the decency to tell me until I was standing in their driveway with the engine running. I gritted my teeth and hit cancel. One confirmation screen popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel your reservation for the Panama Canal 7-night luxury cruise?" "Yes, absolutely." Another tap. Done. Almost instantly, the confirmation email hit my inbox. "Your cruise reservation has been canceled. A full refund will be issued within 3 to 5 business days." I sat there for a moment, breathing, processing. Then, just for good measure, I opened the excursion portal. Private rainforest tour? Canceled. VIP whale watching trip? Canceled. Chef's table dinner experience? Gone. All of it. I sat back in my seat, staring at the ship in the distance. Funny how it looked different now. Less like a dream, and more like a symbol of everything I was done tolerating. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. I glanced at the screen. Dad, then Mom, then Daniel. I let it ring out, watched it go to voicemail, and not a minute later, then came the texts. "Mom, Mandy, something's wrong. Our check-in isn't working. Did you mess up the reservation?" Dad, "Call us. Now." Daniel, "Real mature, Mandy. You better fix this. They're saying there's no booking." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Oh, now you need me?" I waited, let the calls pile up. Then curiosity got the better of me, and I picked up the next call. The moment I answered, my mom's voice hit me like a lightning bolt. "Mandy, what is going on? The front desk says there's no reservation under our name. They've checked 3 times. Did you book it wrong?" I bit back a smile. "No, Mom, I didn't book it wrong." A pause. "Well then. Then what is this? Where's the reservation?" I leaned back in my seat, tapping my fingers against the steering wheel. "It's canceled." Silence. Dead silence. Then, an explosion. What do you mean canceled? Why would you do that? We're standing here. This is so embarrassing. I shrugged, even though she couldn't see it. Well, it didn't make sense to keep paying for a trip I wasn't invited to. I could hear Dad's voice in the background, sharp, frustrated. Ask her if she can fix it. Tell her to call someone. Mom hissed, "Just fix it, Mandy." We don't have time for this. I let out a small, humorless chuckle. Fix it? Oh no, I'm not your fixer anymore. Daniel's voice broke through next, loud enough to be heard over the speaker. You are so petty. Seriously? You're ruining everything. Just admit you overreacted and book it back. I stared out at the water, the massive cruise ship in the distance starting to pull away from the dock. Slowly. Majestically. Right on schedule. I smiled. Can't. The ship's leaving. As if on cue, the long blast of the ship's horn echoed through the air. Mom gasped. Mandy, you didn't... Yup? I interrupted. I did. You've embarrassed us in front of everyone. Your father is furious. Daniel is humiliated. How could you do this to us? I closed my eyes and breathed in the salty ocean air. No, Mom. The question is, how could you do this to me? Silence. For the first time in probably my entire life, they had nothing to say. Good luck figuring it out, I said calmly. Enjoy your vacation. Oh, wait. And with that, I hung up. For a long moment, I sat there, quiet. Then, for the first time in years, I laughed. By the time I pulled back into my driveway, my phone was already blowing up. Voicemails, texts, missed calls. I didn't even bother listening to the voicemails yet. I just tossed the phone face down onto the kitchen counter, walked over to the coffee machine, and hit brew. As the coffee trickled into the pot, the adrenaline started wearing off. My hands were shaking, not from regret, but from something else. Relief, for the first time in, I don't even know how long. I'd stood up for myself. No frantic apologies, no bending over backward, no swallowing hurt just to keep the peace. I finally said, enough. But of course they wouldn't accept that easily. The moment I sat down at the kitchen table with my coffee, the phone started buzzing again. Relentless. Like mosquitoes you just couldn't swat away. I glanced at the screen. Daniel. Ignored. Then Dad. Then Mom. Then Daniel again. I sighed and finally opened the text thread, just to see. Mom, you've gone too far. This is unacceptable. We are stranded here with no hotel, no cruise, and no backup. Fix this now. Daniel. Wow. Seriously, Mandy? This is next level petty. Do you have any idea how much you've embarrassed us? You better be joking. Book it back. Dad. You need to call the cruise line and fix this. We are beyond disappointed. I never thought you'd stoop this low. A bitter laugh escaped me. Oh, I'm the problem now? When they told me, on the morning of departure, that I was no longer invited on the trip I planned, paid for, and organized, that was fine. But canceling it? Suddenly I was the villain. I let out a long breath, grabbed my phone, and hit play on the first voicemail. It was Mom, her voice frantic. Mandy, call me back right now. This is ridiculous. They're saying we don't have a room at the hotel either. The cruise is gone, the hotel is gone, the excursions are gone. What did you do? Fix it. Next voicemail. Dad. More restrained but furious underneath. Mandy, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not okay. This is not how we treat family. I rolled my eyes. Funny. I was just thinking the same thing. Then Daniel's voicemail. Get over yourself. You ruined everything. You're acting like a child. I swear, when I see you next... I deleted it before he finished. I sat there for a minute, staring at the wall, letting the ridiculousness of it all settle in. Was this really happening? Number correction. Was I really, finally, done? I stood up, paced the living room, then came back and stared at my phone again. Half of me wanted to turn it off, throw it in a drawer, forget about it. But the other half wanted to answer. And when Dad's name flashed across the screen for the third time in 2 minutes, I picked up. Mandy. He barked before I could even say hello. This has gone far enough. What you did is completely unacceptable. Your mother is in tears. Daniel is furious. You've ruined our anniversary. You need to call the cruise line immediately. No. Silence. What? No. I repeated slowly. Calm. Steady. I'm not fixing it. I'm not doing anything. I could hear him spluttering on the other end. Mandy, this is insane. You're punishing the whole family over a misunderstanding? I nearly choked. A misunderstanding? You replaced me. On my own gift. You looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't going because Daniel needed rest. We thought you'd understand. He snapped back. You're always the reasonable one. The mature one. You work so much. You said yourself how busy you are all the time. I gritted my teeth. Yeah, I work because no one hands me things. Unlike Daniel. His voice dropped lower, threatening. This isn't like you, Mandy. You've always been the one who holds this family together. I let out a bitter laugh. Exactly. I'm the one who holds everything together. Plans the trips, pays for the dinners, solves the problems, covers for everyone's mistakes. You've just been so comfortable with me being the responsible one that you forgot something? I don't have to. Silence. Complete silence. Then quietly he said, I can't believe you'd do this. To your own family. On our anniversary. Yeah? I snapped. Well, I can't believe my family would look me in the face on the morning of a trip I planned and say, You're not coming. He didn't respond, just a strained sigh. Figure it out, I said, lowering my voice, sharper now. You wanted to take Daniel instead of me? Then you figure out the hotel. You figure out the excursions. You figure out the cruise. Without me. For once. And before he could reply, I hung up. I tossed the phone onto the couch, my hands trembling, not from fear, not from guilt, but from adrenaline. A kind I wasn't used to. The adrenaline of standing up for myself. I sank into the couch, breathing hard, as the weight of what just happened finally settled over me. They were stranded. No cruise, no hotel, no backup plans. For the first time ever, they were the ones left scrambling. Not me. A smile crept across my face. Not my problem. The rest of that day felt quiet. Eerily quiet. No buzzing phone. No guilt-laced texts. No passive-aggressive voicemails. For the first time in years, I had turned my phone off. I made myself lunch. Watched a random cooking show I never had time for. Even pulled out an old jigsaw puzzle from the closet that had gathered dust for months. It was strange. This sense of peace. Strange, but good. And yet beneath the calm, I could feel it. The simmering tension. The storm waiting to hit. Because my family? Oh, they didn't give up that easily. By the time the sun began setting, curiosity got the better of me. I walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up my phone, held it in my palm for a moment, then powered it back on. Instant chaos. It was like opening floodgates. 17 missed calls, 43 texts, 6 voicemails. I took a deep breath and scrolled through. Same patterns, same tactics. Mom. Mandy. I don't understand how you could do this. We're your family. We raised you. We deserve better than this humiliation. Daniel. Grow up. You seriously need therapy. You ruined everything. Dad. Call us. Now this is getting ridiculous. And then, Mom. Your father is furious. I hope you're proud of yourself. We're stranded in a cheap motel miles from the port. You've embarrassed us in front of everyone. Daniel. I swear when we get back, we're gonna have a serious talk. You're a toxic person, Mandy. I had to laugh. Me? Toxic? I shook my head, dropped the phone face down again, and made myself a cup of tea. For years, I'd been on the receiving end of their guilt trips, of their manipulation disguised as family duty or being the bigger person. But now the guilt trip hit different, because I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. About an hour later, the phone rang again. This time, I picked up. It was Mom. Her voice came through, tight, brittle, like she was forcing herself to sound composed. Mandy, listen, we've had some time to think, and we realized that maybe things could have been handled better. I raised an eyebrow. Could have been handled better? She sighed. Look, we didn't mean to hurt you. We were trying to do what was best for Daniel. He's been struggling, you know that. Right, I said flatly. And I'm always the one expected to sacrifice. Again. No one asked you to sacrifice anything. She snapped back, the composure starting to crack. You're always working anyway. We thought you wouldn't mind giving this one thing to your brother. I nearly dropped the phone. Giving this one thing? Mom, it wasn't yours to give. This wasn't some spare pair of shoes. This was a cruise I spent 2 years planning and paying for. Silence. Look, she tried again, voice softer now. You made your point. But now, it's gone too far. Your father is furious. Daniel is devastated. We've had to book this terrible motel. Not my problem. Mandy. No. I cut her off. You made your choice, Mom. You decided that Daniel deserved this more than I did. So now, you can figure it out. You can figure out the hotel, the excursions, the cruise. Just like I always have. Her voice dropped into that guilt-ridden whisper I knew all too well. I just don't understand how you can be so cruel. To your own family. I clenched my jaw. No, Mom. The real question is, how could you be so cruel to me? The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. She didn't have an answer. She never did when the mirror got held up to her face. After a few seconds, she mumbled, Well, I hope you're happy, 'cause you've ruined our anniversary. I took a deep breath. Calm, controlled. No, Mom, I didn't ruin your anniversary. You did. And I hung up. The following day was quiet again. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was tempting to wonder if maybe they finally got it. If maybe they finally realized the line they'd crossed. But by noon, reality came knocking. A call from Dad. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. I answered. His tone was different. Not angry, not yelling, just tired, defeated. Mandy, he started, sighing heavily. Your mother and we've been talking. We think maybe we made a mistake. My heart thudded, but I kept my voice steady. Maybe? He groaned. Look, this has gotten out of hand. We didn't mean to hurt you, but Daniel, he's just, you know how he is. Yes, I said dryly. I know exactly how he is. He doesn't handle stress well. He needed a break. I leaned back, biting my tongue to stop from laughing. And I'm the one who has to lose my vacation because of that? Dad sighed again. You've always been the strong one, Mandy. The reliable one. We thought you'd understand. There it was. The oldest line in their book. You're the strong one. The responsible one. The mature one. So be the one who sacrifices. Again. I do understand, I said coldly. I understand perfectly now. Look, Dad tried again. We're willing to talk about this when we get home. We'll figure something out. I smirked. Yeah? You do that. And I hung up. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence. Not a single call. Not one text. Nothing. It was weird, but not unwelcome. Honestly, I needed it. For the first time in years, I had actual space to breathe. to think, to process everything. I didn't realize how heavy the weight of always being the fixer was until I set it down. But deep down, I knew the silence wouldn't last. It never did with my family. And right on cue, on the fourth day, my phone lit up with a message from Dad. "We're back. Come by the house. We need to talk." No apology, no explanation. Just, we need to talk. A few months ago, that would have sent me into an anxiety spiral. Stomach knots, sweaty palms, rehearsing every possible conversation in my head. But not this time. This time, I felt something else. Something sharper, stronger, readiness. I sipped my coffee, set the cup down, grabbed my keys, and drove over. As I pulled into their driveway, a wave of memories hit me. Family barbecues, birthday parties, late nights helping Dad fix the gutters, Christmas mornings on this very porch. But now, it all felt different. Like I was stepping onto a stage I no longer belonged to. Or maybe didn't want to belong to anymore. The front door swung open before I even knocked. There stood Mom, arms crossed, face tight. Behind her, Dad sat on the couch, looking more worn out than angry this time. And Daniel, flopped in the armchair like he had zero shame about anything that happened. I stepped inside. Quiet, calm, observing. "Sit," Mom said sharply, motioning to the chair across from them. I didn't. I stayed standing. "So," I started, folding my arms. "What exactly did you want to talk about?" Mom jumped right in. "We think it's time we move past. Whatever this was. You've made your point." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Have I?" Dad sighed. "Look, Mandy, we all made mistakes. Things were said. Done. But this grudge, it's hurting the whole family." A laugh bubbled out of me. Not forced, not bitter. Just disbelief. "A grudge? Is that what we're calling it now?" Daniel scoffed. "Yeah, you completely overreacted. Seriously, it was one trip. Get over yourself." And there it was. The golden child energy, fully intact. "One trip?" I echoed. "Do you honestly think this is about one trip?" Daniel rolled his eyes. "Yeah, actually." I shook my head. "Of course you do." Then I turned to my parents. "Do you two honestly believe this was just about the cruise?" Silence. I stepped forward. This wasn't about 1 week on a ship. This was about years. Years of me showing up, paying for things, solving problems, being the reliable one. While you made excuse after excuse for him. While you overlooked me, ignored me, took me for granted. Dad opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. "You didn't just replace me on a trip. You replaced me in this family dynamic a long time ago. That cruise was just the moment I finally saw it for what it was." Mom's arms dropped to her sides. "Mandy, that's not fair." "No, Mom," I said, voice sharp but steady. "What's not fair is spending 2 years saving, planning, paying for a trip, only to show up and be told I'm not going, because Daniel, it needed rest." I turned to Daniel. "Rest from what exactly? From your exhausting career of sleeping till noon?" Daniel's face went red. "Wow, real mature." "Oh, please," I shot back. "Mature? You've lived your entire adult life off of everyone else's labor. You don't get to lecture me about maturity." Dad stood, hands raised. "Okay, that's enough." "No," I interrupted. "It's not enough, not yet." I let my eyes scan the room. All of them. "I'm done being your fixer, your planner, your backup wallet, your afterthought. I'm done." Mom's voice cracked. "Mandy, we didn't realize how much this hurt you." I sighed. "That's the problem, Mom. You never realized. Not until it affected you. Not until the hotel told you there was no room. Not until you stood at that port with no crews to board. You only notice when I stopped doing." Dad sat back down heavily. "So what? You're just cutting us off now?" I shook my head. But there are boundaries now. Clear ones. If you want me in your lives, it's going to be on different terms. My terms. Daniel scoffed. Oh, please, like we care. I turned to him, smiling. Oh, I know you care. You just don't want to admit it. But deep down, you all know. Your safety net just walked out that door. I grabbed my purse, turned toward the door, and before stepping out, added one final line. Enjoy figuring things out for yourselves. I've got a life to live. And with that, I walked out. The drive home felt different, lighter. There was no tightness in my chest. No spinning thoughts trying to figure out what I should have said or done. No guilt, no second guessing. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't leaving their house feeling small. I was leaving it free. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. I did it. I finally stood up for myself. No yelling, no tears, just clear boundaries, firm director. And the best part? I didn't regret a single word. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner, poured a glass of wine, and sat out on the back porch. The sun was setting, casting everything in soft gold. It felt symbolic somehow, like the end of one chapter and the start of something entirely new. I opened my laptop, almost on autopilot. Stared at the screen for a minute. Then, without even thinking, I typed into the search bar. Last-minute solo cruises. Because here's the thing. That cruise wasn't just for them. It was supposed to be for me too. An adventure, a celebration, a reward for working hard, for showing up, for never quitting. And just because they didn't value me didn't mean I had to follow their lead. It didn't take long to find one. A 10-day Caribbean and Central America cruise departing in 4 days. Balcony room available. Private excursions still open. Perfect. Without hesitation, I clicked Book Now, paid, confirmed. And as the confirmation email popped into my inbox, something strange happened. I smiled. Not a forced smile. Not a pretend everything's fine smile. A real one. The next few days were a whirlwind. I packed, bought a new swimsuit, grabbed a journal from the bookstore. And the entire time, silence. No calls. No texts. Nothing from my parents or Daniel. Not an apology. Not an explanation. But you know what? That silence didn't bother me anymore. It felt like peace. The morning of departure, I stood at the dock with my suitcase in hand. The ship loomed in front of me. Massive, beautiful, inviting. This time, I wasn't watching someone else board. This time, it was me. Check-in was seamless. The staff welcomed me like royalty. By noon, I was standing on my private balcony, watching the port shrink into the distance as the ship slowly pulled away. I took a deep breath, letting the sea air fill my lungs. Freedom. The next 10 days were everything I didn't know I needed. Snorkeling in crystal clear waters, ziplining through lush rainforests, private cooking classes in Costa Rica, quiet mornings on the balcony with coffee, watching the sunrise over the ocean. No stress, no obligations, no family drama. Just me, existing, living, breathing, thriving. I met people, other solo travelers, people who weren't weighed down by guilt or expectations, people who laughed easily, who asked questions like, "What's your favorite place you've ever traveled?" instead of, "Why aren't you helping your family more?" It was refreshing. It reminded me that there was a whole world beyond being the family's fixer. A whole world where I could simply be Mandy. One evening, near the end of the cruise, I sat alone at a little table on the top deck, watching the sunset melt into the horizon. I opened my journal, the one I'd barely written in back home because every page felt like another chore. But now, the words flowed easily. Stop shrinking yourself to fit spaces you've outgrown. Being the strong one doesn't mean being the sacrificial one. It's okay to choose yourself. I smiled reading that last line. It's okay to choose yourself. Somewhere along the line, I'd been taught that choosing myself was selfish. that sacrificing was the price of love, that my worth came from what I could give, not who I was. But none of that was true. Not anymore. When I got home, I half expected to find a barrage of texts or missed calls. But there was nothing. A few days passed. Then a single text from Mom. "Hope you had a nice trip. Maybe we can talk soon." No apology. No accountability. Just polite words on a screen. I stared at it for a while, then locked my phone and set it aside. Maybe we can talk. When I'm ready, on my terms. In the weeks that followed, I made more changes. I signed up for a photography class I'd always put off. Started going on weekend hikes. Booked a second solo trip for next year, this time to Greece. I even rearranged my living room, replacing the old furniture my parents had given me years ago with pieces that felt more like me. Every small change felt like peeling back the layers of who I'd been told to be, and uncovering the person I'd always been underneath. The truth is, this story doesn't end with some magical family reconciliation. It doesn't end with them suddenly understanding everything or apologizing in the way I used to dream they would. But it does end with something better. It ends with me finally realizing I was never the problem. I was simply someone who finally learned to choose herself. And freedom? It looks really, really good on me. "I'm cutting your hours to part-time. Take it or leave it," my boss said, leaning back in his chair with a smug grin that made my stomach twist. His words hit me like a slap. After 20 years of pouring my heart, my time, and honestly, my life into this company, this was how it was going to be? I blinked, trying to process what I'd just heard. "Excuse me?" My voice barely sounded like mine. Frank tapped his pen against the armrest, looking pleased with himself. "You heard me, Rachel. Part-time. Budget cuts, restructuring, all the usual excuses." His hand flicked lazily through some papers on his desk like he couldn't even be bothered to look at me. I gripped the edge of the chair to stop my hands from shaking. "Frank, I've been here 20 years. I manage half of your vendor relationships. My accounts generate— doesn't matter." He cut me off without a blink. "You're comfortable. You've been around too long. We need fresh blood. Young, cheap, flexible." He chuckled to himself as if this was a clever joke. "Take it or leave it, Rachel. Part-time starts next Monday. Benefits? Gone." For a second, the air left the room. My name is Rachel Parker, and for 20 years, I was the senior procurement manager at Crestview Interiors, a mid-sized design supply company here in Columbus, Ohio. I wasn't just an employee. I was the one who built our vendor network from scratch. From the tiny textile workshops in North Carolina to the Italian marble suppliers overseas. I'd spent years building relationships, negotiating deals, ensuring on-time deliveries. I wasn't just part of Crestview. I was Crestview. Or at least I thought I was. Frank sat there with that same smug look. The look of someone who thought they held all the cards. And for a few painful seconds, I believed he did. I swallowed hard. "So that's it? No discussion? Just part-time or the door?" "Exactly." His eyes didn't waver. "Nothing personal, just business." "Nothing personal." Funny how people only say that when they're doing something profoundly personal. I stood up slowly, smoothing the front of my blazer. My hands were trembling, but my voice came out steady. "You know what, Frank? Thank you. Truly, thank you for making this decision so easy." His smirk faltered just for a split second, like he wasn't sure whether I was breaking down or about to punch him. "You can consider this my notice." I grabbed my purse. "I won't be back on Monday. Or ever." Whoa, hold on. Frank sat forward. "You don't want to think this through?" "Oh, I've been thinking this through for years." I turned toward the door. You just gave me the push I needed. As I walked out of his office, past the desks and halls that had been my second home for 2 decades, I felt a wave of something unexpected. It wasn't fear. It was relief. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked shell-shocked. But beneath that, something sharper was beginning to take root. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over my contacts. I knew exactly who to call. The first name, Marco DeLuca, owner of one of the largest marble import businesses in the Midwest. A man I'd worked with for 15 years. Someone who always said, "Rachel, if you ever go out on your own, I'm with you." The second, Karen Lee, Textiles, our biggest supplier for the past decade. She once told me over coffee, "Rachel, you're the only reason we put up with Frank's nonsense." And the third, Sanjay Patel, owner of an exclusive hardwood supplier. A friendship built over 18 years of late shipments, crisis management, and late-night problem-solving calls. I scrolled to Marco's name and hit dial. "Marco, it's Rachel." "Rachel. Hey, how are you? What's going on?" His voice was instantly warm. I took a deep breath. "Marco, I've got some news. I'm no longer with Crestview." A beat of silence. "You're kidding. What happened?" "Long story, but I'm calling because I think it's time. I'm opening my own shop. Full-service supply for designers and contractors. Smaller, boutique, but run the right way. No bureaucracy. Just honest partnerships." He didn't even hesitate. "You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say that. Rachel, we're in. Exclusive contract. No more Crestview. I'll send the paperwork tomorrow." I sat there stunned for a second, and then smiled. One down, 2 to go. By the time I ended the next 2 calls, the outcome was the same. All 3, my most valuable vendors, agreed to exclusive contracts with me, effective immediately. And here's the thing. Crestview couldn't operate without them. Frank had no idea, not yet, but he was about to find out. As I sat there in my car, phone buzzing with follow-up emails and contract drafts, a thought hit me so sharply it nearly took my breath. 20 years of loyalty, 20 years of giving them everything. And all it took was a smug little sentence from Frank to set me free. He thought he'd cut me down. He had no idea. I'd just begun. I woke up the next morning before the sun had even risen, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. It wasn't fear. No, this was adrenaline, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. By 6 a.m., I was already at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee in hand, drafting the framework for my new business. I didn't even have a name yet. But the contracts from Marco, Karen, and Sanjay were already sitting in my inbox. Signed, sealed, ready. A decade ago, something like this would have terrified me. But today, it felt like freedom. Around 8:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Thomas, one of the warehouse guys at Crestview. We'd worked together for years. "Rachel, something's weird. Trucks aren't showing up. Frank's losing it. Did you hear anything?" I stared at the message, a slow smile spreading across my face. Right on time. Meanwhile, inside Crestview's beige, soul-sucking office, chaos was unfolding. I wasn't there to witness it firsthand, but Thomas would later tell me everything. It started with a missing shipment of marble from Marco's company. Frank brushed it off. Probably a delay. Then the textile order from Karen's company was a no-show, followed by the hardwood shipment from Sanjay. 3 separate orders, all marked as canceled. By 10 a.m., Frank was pacing the floor, his tie loosened, barking at the warehouse team, customer service, anyone who'd listen. Call them. Get someone on the phone. Find out what the hell is going on. But the answers weren't what he expected. Marco's assistant. Sorry, sir. We no longer do business with Crestview Interiors. Karen's operations manager. Your account was closed yesterday. Permanently. Sanjay himself. It's not personal, Frank. Business decision. By 11:30 a.m., the reality started sinking in. Crestview's 3 largest supply lines, the backbone of half their product catalog, were gone. Not delayed, not on hold. Gone. And the worst part? There were no alternatives. I knew that. Because I was the one who spent 20 years negotiating those deals. I'd built them to be airtight. Exclusive pricing, guaranteed delivery schedules, custom material allocations. Frank had always bragged that Crestview's supply chain was bulletproof. Funny. Turns out the bullet was me. I was sitting at my dining table reviewing logo concepts for my new business when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I had a pretty good idea who it was. I let it ring twice before answering. Rachel, it's Frank. His voice was tight, strained, but trying badly to sound casual. Hey, quick question. Did something happen with our vendors? I paused, just for a beat. Oh, did they not tell you? I asked, keeping my tone light, polite. They've signed exclusive contracts with me, effective yesterday. Silence. Utter perfect silence. Wait, what? Are you kidding me? Rachel, come on. You can't do that. We've worked together for... He was sputtering now. 20 years. I finished for him. Yes, Frank. 20 years. I let that hang in the air for a second. And in the end, you thought I was worth part-time hours and no benefits. Okay, let's not do this, he snapped. Look, we can work something out. Come back, full-time. We'll discuss a raise. Hell, I'll even talk bonus structure. I almost laughed. The desperation was dripping from every word. Frank, you made it clear yesterday. This isn't personal. It's just business, right? I said, letting his own words slice through the phone line like a knife. Rachel, be reasonable. We have contracts, orders, clients depending on us. You can't just... His voice cracked. He wasn't in control anymore, and he knew it. Oh, I didn't just do anything. I spent 20 years doing this, building relationships you never valued. You made your choice yesterday, Frank. And so did I. I hung up. No yelling, no screaming, no theatrics, just professional silence. Within an hour, my phone lit up with texts. Thomas. Frank is losing his mind. 3 clients already canceled orders. Warehouse is dead silent. Never seen anything like it. Maya from accounting. Did you really sign exclusives with the vendors? Is this real? Lena from sales. Frank's calling emergency meetings. Clients are furious. Honestly, good for you, Rachel. You deserved better. But here's the thing. I didn't take joy in watching Crestview burn. Not really. Because beneath the chaos, the missed shipments and the panicked phone calls, was a deeper truth. This was never about revenge. It was about realizing something that had taken me 2 decades to understand. If you spend your life building someone else's dream, they'll never value you as much as you value yourself. The mistake was thinking loyalty would be repaid. It rarely is. As the sun started setting, I poured myself a glass of wine, leaned against my balcony railing, and looked out over the Columbus skyline. Tomorrow, I'd sign the lease for my new office. A blank space, a fresh start. And for the first time in years, it was mine. All mine. By the time morning rolled around, there was no turning back. At 8 a.m. sharp, I stood in front of a small, sunlit office space in downtown Columbus. It was nothing like the corporate, gray-walled maze of Crestview interiors. This place was different. Open. Bright. Full of possibility. The leasing agent handed me the keys. Congratulations, she smiled. First day of the rest of your life. She had no idea how right she was. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, big windows overlooking the street below. Empty? But not for long. I set my tote bag on the dusty desk in the corner, pulled out my laptop, and powered it on. This was it. No title, no bureaucracy, no smug boss leaning over me with backhanded compliments. Just me, and the terrifying, exhilarating reality of starting something from nothing. I spent the next 3 hours filing the LLC paperwork, setting up a business bank account, purchasing a domain name, and registering for all the licenses I needed. It was tedious, overwhelming even. But every form I submitted felt like a brick being laid in the foundation of my future. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was an email from Karen Lee, my textile supplier. Hey, Rachel. Just wanted you to know, we've already informed our entire network that we're exclusive to you now. Also, one of our longtime clients, a luxury design firm, is looking for a new supplier since their current one can't meet demand anymore. Should I connect you? My heart skipped. This was happening. Absolutely, Karen. Please introduce me. I replied immediately, fingers flying across the keyboard. An hour later, I was on a Zoom call with the design firm's CEO, Elena Ortiz, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who ran one of the most sought-after firms in the city. We've heard of you, Elena said, raising an eyebrow. You were the reason Crestview ran so smoothly all these years, weren't you? I smiled, modest but firm. I was the procurement manager. I handled most of the vendor relationships. Yeah, we figured. They've been a disaster ever since you left. Her lips twitched. Let's talk about what you can offer. By the end of the call, I had secured my first major client, a high-end contract that would keep my new company afloat for months. No fancy pitch decks, no middlemen. Just one simple truth. When people trust you, they'll follow you. Meanwhile, back at Crestview, things were unraveling faster than anyone expected. Thomas texted me updates throughout the day. Client cancellations are pouring in. Frank's trying to outsource supply to random vendors, but no one can deliver fast enough. 2 designers walked out today. And Lena, she just gave her notice. She's heading your way. I blinked at the screen. Lena? Sure enough, 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Rachel, please tell me you have room for one more, she said without even saying hello. I can't work there another day. It's a sinking ship. I laughed. Come by the office tomorrow. Let's talk. By 5 p.m., I was exhausted, but a good kind of exhausted. The kind that comes from building, not surviving. I stood by the window, watching the streetlights flicker on, and thought about the last 48 hours. 2 days ago, I was sitting in Frank's office, stunned, humiliated, and heartbroken as he told me I was too expensive for the company I helped build. Now, I was fielding new client calls, reviewing contract drafts, and setting up interviews with talented people who wanted to join me. But as excited as I was, reality still hovered in the back of my mind. Starting a business wasn't just contracts and office space. There were risks, bills to pay, no steady paycheck yet, no safety net. For a flicker of a moment, doubt tried to creep in. What if this fails? What if I made a huge mistake? What if Frank was right, and I really was replaceable? Then my phone buzzed again, this time an email from Marco, the marble supplier. Just a heads up, Frank tried to call me 6 times today, begged me to resume shipments. I told him politely, no, I'm with Rachel now. For good. I sat back, letting the words wash over me. This wasn't just happening. It was real. And in that moment, staring at the screen, a quiet but unshakable thought settled deep in my chest. I was never replaceable. I was just undervalued. Frank didn't fire me because I wasn't good enough. He fired me because he never believed I'd realize how much power I actually held. As I shut down my laptop for the night, one final text popped up from Thomas. You might want to check Crestview's Google reviews. Looks like the clients are figuring it out too. I opened the page and scrolled. Review after review. Orders delayed. No materials. What happened to the old team? If Rachel's gone, so are we. This company isn't the same anymore. Unreliable. Disorganized. I laughed quietly. Frank's empire was crumbling, And mine? It was just beginning. By Monday morning, my tiny office no longer felt empty. It was buzzing. Lena arrived at 8 a.m. Sharp, coffee in hand, a determined look on her face. "I couldn't sleep. I'm ready. Let's do this," she said, dropping her bag next to a secondhand desk we'd found over the weekend. By noon, I'd hired Maya from accounting, who walked out of Crestview Friday afternoon after her third unpaid overtime week. "I realized something," she told me, sliding her resignation letter across Frank's desk. "If you can afford marble floors for the executive lounge but can't pay your staff, I'm out." I spent the next few hours creating our service catalog, setting pricing models, and drafting marketing emails to potential clients. My inbox was filling faster than I could respond. Word had spread, faster than I ever imagined. By 3 p.m., we secured our second major client, a commercial design firm that had worked with Crestview for years but was now deeply dissatisfied with recent supply chain failures, as they politely put it. And while my little team was building, back at Crestview, everything was falling apart. Thomas texted me updates almost hourly. "Rachel, Frank called another emergency meeting. 2 more clients pulled their orders today. He tried to patch things with Karen. Total failure. She told him, quote, 'You should have valued Rachel while you had her.'" Oh, and get this. He's offering Lena's old accounts to interns. Interns. Then, just after 5 p.m., my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I didn't even need to guess. I picked up. "Rachel, it's Frank." His voice was thinner this time. Not the arrogant, smug tone from last week. Number this was different. Tight. Controlled. But strained underneath. I've been meaning to reach out. Look, this has gotten out of hand. I think we should talk." I raised an eyebrow, even though he couldn't see it. "Talk about what, Frank?" "Look, I may have acted hastily last week. Cutting your hours, it wasn't personal. The company's under stress. You know how these things go." "Do I?" I said coolly. "Yeah, well, anyway, I've been thinking, maybe we could figure something out. Maybe bring you back, full-time, better title, better pay. Senior operations lead. We'll put the past behind us." I let the silence stretch for a long, delicious moment. "Frank," I finally said, "I appreciate the offer, but I've started my own company. You already know that. Look, Rachel, we're both professionals. Be reasonable. This thing you're doing, it's risky. You've got no infrastructure, no warehouse, no—" "And yet," I interrupted, "you can't seem to keep your shipments running without me." The line went quiet. "Rachel," he sighed, voice small now. "Please, clients are walking. Vendors won't take my calls. We've got contracts, deadlines. Look, let's meet. Name the place." I shook my head, staring out the window at the golden afternoon sunlight. "Frank, this is exactly what happens when you treat people like disposable assets. Loyalty isn't a one-way street." "Rachel," he started, but I'd already made up my mind. "Good luck, Frank. Really, but I'm not coming back." And I hung up. An hour later, there was a knock on my office door. It wasn't Frank. It was Eleanor, Crestview's lead sales director. Her face was pale, eyes hollow, and her hands shook as she held a manila folder to her chest. "Rachel, do you have a moment?" I blinked. "Eleanor, what?" "I can't do it anymore," she said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. "I'm done. I'm finished watching that man burn the place down." She dropped the folder on my desk. Inside were client lists, vendor contact sheets, pricing models, basically Crestview's entire sales infrastructure. "I want to work for you," she said simply. "I want to help you build something better." I leaned back, speechless for a moment. "Eleanor? Are you sure?" "Rachel, that place, it's a sinking ship. Half our clients are already calling around looking for alternatives. You are the alternative. You've always been the real engine behind everything. By the time I left the office that night, I had a team of 4, a rapidly growing client list, and more vendor support than I'd ever imagined possible. But something else happened that day. Something bigger than just leaving Crestview behind. I realized I was no longer trying to replace what I lost. I was building something better. Something where people were valued. Where work meant something. Where loyalty was actually earned. As I locked up for the night, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. You should know, Frank's in talks with bankruptcy lawyers. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, not with fear, but with an overwhelming sense of clarity. The collapse wasn't mine. It was his. And tomorrow would be a whole new chapter. By Wednesday morning, my office wasn't just busy. It was buzzing like a beehive. Phones ringing, printers humming. My inbox was exploding with inquiries. Clients, vendors, designers, all reaching out, some out of curiosity, others out of desperation. Is it true? You started your own company? Are you taking on new clients? Can you get us the same materials as before? Actually, faster? The answer was simple. Yes, and better. I glanced around the office. Lena was juggling 2 calls at once, jotting notes on sticky pads covering her desk. Eleanor sat across from me, hammering out a client proposal that just a week ago would have belonged to Crestview. Maya was reviewing contracts with a sharpness that made me grateful, and slightly terrified to ever be on her bad side. And me? I was standing in the middle of something I'd never thought I'd have. A company of my own. At 10:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification, a text from Thomas. Rachel, check the business news. Right now. My stomach tightened. I opened the local Columbus Business Journal app, and there it was. Front page. Crestview Interiors facing operational collapse as key vendors withdraw. By Melissa Grant, senior business reporter. I skimmed the article, pulse pounding. Sources confirm that Crestview Interiors has suffered massive operational disruptions after the sudden departure of their senior procurement manager, Rachel Parker, and key sales staff. Multiple long-standing vendors have terminated their contracts with the company, citing concerns over leadership and business practices. Clients report widespread delays, canceled orders, and broken agreements. Industry insiders speculate Crestview may be forced into bankruptcy within weeks unless major restructuring occurs. There was even a quote from Marco. Our business is built on trust. Rachel was the reason we worked with Crestview. When she left, so did we. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. This was real. This wasn't a private fallout anymore. This was public. The entire city, the entire industry knew. Before I could even put my phone down, my email pinged. Subject line, congratulations. It was from Elena Ortiz, the CEO of the luxury design firm I'd signed just days earlier. Looks like your timing was perfect. Our clients are thrilled with the transition. We'd like to discuss expanding our contract with you. Are you available this afternoon? I blinked, barely believing what I was reading. Yes, I typed back instantly. Let's schedule it. It was surreal. 1 week ago, I sat in Frank's office, clutching my purse, blindsided as he told me I was being cut to part-time like I was disposable. And now I was fielding expansion proposals. Meanwhile, the messages from inside Crestview kept pouring in. Rachel, HR just sent out a notice that payroll might be delayed. Maya, who thankfully wasn't there anymore. Frank just stormed out of the office. Someone said he was yelling at his lawyer on speakerphone. Thomas, 3 more clients are threatening to sue for breach of contract. Lena's old coworker. And then came the message that nearly made me drop my coffee. Rachel, he's listing Crestview's assets for sale. Desks, inventory, the warehouse, everything. I read it twice to make sure it was real. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window as the sunlight filtered through the glass. It was happening. The company that told me I was replaceable was crumbling without me. And not because I sabotaged anything, not because I stole anything, not because I plotted some grand revenge. They collapsed because they never understood the simple truth. When you don't value the people who build your company won't survive. Later that afternoon, I met with Elena and her team. What started as a check-in quickly turned into something much bigger. "Rachel," she said, folding her hands, "we'd like to make you our primary supplier for the next 2 years. Exclusive. You've proven yourself faster than anyone I've worked with in this industry." My throat tightened. "Elena, that's an incredible offer." "Not just an offer," she smiled. "It's a partnership. The kind Crestview never understood how to nurture." By 6 p.m., my team was gathered in the office. I stood at the front, hands shaking a little, but not with nerves, with disbelief, with pride. "Everyone, we did it. We passed our first milestone. We are officially profitable as of today." There were cheers, hugs, a few happy tears. I wasn't sure if one of them was mine. I raised my glass of cheap sparkling wine. To the company that values people, to the clients who believe in us, and to the future, which is ours to build. Glasses clinked, laughter filled the room, and for the first time in my career, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. As I locked up for the night, a single thought floated through my mind like a quiet whisper. This isn't revenge. This is rebirth. It was exactly 4 weeks to the day since I walked out of Frank's office for the last time. 4 weeks since I was told I was too expensive. 4 weeks since someone who never understood my worth tried to reduce me to part-time. After 20 years of building his company. And now, here I was, standing in my own office, watching my team buzz around, fielding calls, confirming orders, onboarding new clients. My company was no longer just an idea. It was real. Thriving. Growing. I glanced at the framed sign we'd hung above the entrance just last week. Parker & Company, Supply Solutions. Simple. Clean, but powerful. My name. My future. At 9:15 a.m., Lena walked in holding a coffee cup and an envelope. "You're going to want to see this," she grinned, dropping it on my desk. I raised an eyebrow, peeling it open. Inside was a printed screenshot of a public bankruptcy filing notice. Crestview Interiors, LLC, filing under Chapter 7. Complete liquidation. It was official. Crestview was gone. I stared at it for a long moment. It wasn't joy I felt. It wasn't triumph. It was closure. The final punctuation mark on a chapter that, for so long, I thought would define me. "Guess who's looking for a job?" Lena added, pulling her phone out and scrolling. "Frank, posted on LinkedIn last night. Open to work. Seeking senior leadership roles in operations or supply chain." She rolled her eyes. "Wonder how he'll explain that to recruiters." I didn't say anything at first, because the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even bitter. In a strange way, I was grateful. "You know the funny part?" I said, leaning back. "Frank always thought he had the power. He thought he was the reason Crestview survived, the reason clients stayed, the reason vendors signed. But it was never him." Lena nodded. "It was always you." "No." I shook my head. "It was always the people. The ones who showed up every day. Who built relationships, managed the chaos, solved the problems. The people he thought were disposable." Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Karen Lee, my textile vendor. "Just got a call from one of Crestview's old clients. They're desperate. I told them to call you." A second buzz. This time from Marco. "Rachel, FYI, one of the big developers downtown wants to meet with you. They're shopping for a new primary supplier since, well, you know." And a third from Sanjay. "Congratulations, Rachel. Feels good to work with someone who actually knows the business. Let's grow this thing together. I smiled, setting the phone down. This wasn't luck. This wasn't an accident. This was the direct consequence of knowing my worth, of walking away the moment someone showed me they didn't. At noon, my team gathered in the conference room for our weekly check-in. The energy was electric. Clients were coming in faster than we could onboard them. The backlog was already big enough to justify expanding. "We need more space," Maya said, flipping her laptop around to show the numbers. "At this rate, we'll outgrow this office in 6 months." "Good problem to have," I smiled. "A warehouse would solve half our issues," Eleanor added. "I know a property manager who can show us a few listings." "Let's do it," I said. "Start the calls. Let's think big. No limits." As the meeting wrapped up, I looked around the room. These weren't just coworkers. These were the people who believed in me, who left comfort for risk, who chose me, not because of a paycheck, but because of trust. And then, as if the universe had one last plot twist left, my receptionist poked her head in. "Rachel, there's someone here asking to speak with you. Walk in. Says it's urgent." I frowned. "Who?" She hesitated. "Frank." For a second, the room went completely silent. Lena blinked. Maya's jaw actually dropped. "He's here?" Eleanor whispered. "What does he want?" "I don't know," I said, standing. "But let's find out." I walked to the front lobby, and there he was. Frank, formerly smug, formerly untouchable. Now, smaller. His suit was wrinkled. His tie hung loose. The man who once wielded control like a sword looked defeated. "Rachel," he started, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I just wanted to say, congratulations. Seems like you're doing well." I crossed my arms, waiting. "Look, I made some mistakes," he continued, his voice cracking. "I underestimated you. I didn't realize how important you were. To the company, to the vendors, to everyone." I nodded slowly. "You didn't, but now you do." He shifted awkwardly. If you ever need someone with my experience, I'm open. Just putting that out there." I stared at him for a moment, and then, calmly, I replied, "Frank, I wish you the best. Truly. But we're building something different here, and there's no space for the way you did business. Not anymore." I held out my hand. "Take care of yourself." He shook it, nodded, and left. And just like that, the last ghost of Crestview was gone. As I walked back to my office, my team stared. "Was that—" Lena started. "Yep," I smiled. "It was. And I think it's time we stop looking back." I grinned. "We've got a future to build." I sat back at my desk, watching the sun pour through the window, and a final thought settled quietly in my heart. The power was never theirs. It was mine. It always was. And now, it was time to own it.